Unschooling has gotten some bad press, but really, could it be the most effective way to teach your child? I mean, let's step back and look at the curriculum model for a moment here. This model actually puts your child into a box for what learning is supposed to look like and supposed to mean. Take the time to learn the tools that you need so that in those moments, that can be a really natural approach. This is how you keep homeschooling relaxed and intuitive. So, what's the problem? Why aren't more people unschooling then? The problem is that when you don't know these tools to draw from, you can't be intuitive. You need to learn these strategies so that you are not left wondering what to do, and so that you're not then forced to just do what a curriculum book tells you to. Here's a fun fact. I actually have a background with my education degree in curriculum development and design. And yet, here I am, unschooling with my own children at about 60–70% of everything that we do. Well, why? Because there is a benefit to the different kinds of learning that can happen through curriculum. And then there is a benefit to the kind of learning that comes up naturally. But you need to be able to take that moment and draw from it so that your child can actually be stretched a little bit to learn. They can only do as much as they think that they can do. They can only stretch themselves so far as they think that they can go, and they need you in order to grow and stretch a little bit further. So, for example, what could this look like? In my family, I recently downloaded a bunch of library audiobooks. I asked them to pick one of them, but only by number, so they didn't know what they were picking. Turns out it was a story from the perspective of a seed, and each chapter was that seed's adventure, learning about a new part of the ecosystem, and it painted a picture for those new characters that it met and how those different parts of the ecosystem worked together and what their life cycle was like. Score! We just learned about how the ecosystem interacts. And it was through an audiobook, but they can only learn so much from just reading the book. It would be really good to check for not only reading comprehension, but also the depth of understanding that they got from that book by asking the right kinds of questions. Having this audiobook has allowed us to bring up new kinds of great conversations and has sparked some new interests for my children. Now, I know what kind of questions that I can ask them in follow-up. And they don't need to be that I know all of the content and all of the facts in order to ask these questions. That's because learning isn't about knowledge and facts. It's about inspiring them to learn how to learn. You're probably wondering, how did you get to this point from curriculum development and design? Well, if you're new here, hello, welcome. My name is Natalie Burns, and I support homeschooling moms to find the freedom to reflect who you are as a family through the way that you teach so that you can deepen your connection with your child. This is all about how you approach homeschooling, and unschoolers are nailing it when it comes to this relaxed and intuitive approach. But not everybody is comfortable going full out unschooling. It can be super intimidating. So, how do you start? How can you draw in some of these best practices into your home? Do you have to go all in? No, you don't. I'm going to give you 2 huge tips for how you can get started today teaching a little bit more intuitively in your homeschool. Whether or not you throw out your curriculum to fully unschool, or you just apply these practices a little bit at a time in your home, these will support you in order to have deeper connection and less fighting and overwhelm. All right, number 1. You cannot do what you don't know exists. I know it's a little bit obvious, but hear me out here. You need to do some personal growth in order to learn the tools that you need to draw out in that moment. I'm not going to leave you hanging here. I'm going to share 3 of my favorite tools that you can put into your toolbox today so that you're not left hanging. You can actually pull these out whenever you want to. The first one is this theory of multiple intelligences. This is simply saying that there are different ways that different people learn. Just because your child is a lot like you does not mean that they are going to think exactly like you. There are going to be certain ways that they really tend to process information more easily. And it is a good idea for you to present learning and allow them to show their learning in these ways that they are most comfortable with. Get started teaching in a way that works for them best. As a quick example, if your child is right now learning how to read, but they are a kinesthetic learner, then going through workbooks is not going to be the best way to go about that. Instead, try putting those sound letter cards on the floor on spots. And then as they jump onto each of the spots, they say the letter sound. So as they jump on the C, they would say k. As they jump on the A, they would say ah, or even ah. And then as they jump on the T, they would say t. And then as they start to jump faster, they can start to blend those sounds together. K, at. And that's how you could teach reading to somebody who's a lot more physical. The next tool for your toolbox is to ask open-ended questions. And that is the type of question that doesn't have just like an immediate, firm, closed-off response. It's a response that has more than one way to get to an answer. It maybe even has more than one right answer. And so an open question really allows your child to explain themselves. It allows them to show off how high their level of thinking really is for that topic. Quick example could be something along the lines of, here's the example of the closed question. Did you have fun at your homeschool co-op today? They would say yes or no. Versus an open question here would be, what was the most surprising thing you learned at homeschool co-op today? And so do you see that this allows them to actually express something that they first thought of and then put into their own way of communicating with you? And the third tool for your homeschool toolbox here is to do reflection activities to check about what they already know and what they still struggle with. So for example, you could look at this traffic light picture and see that there is a spot for red, stop, like I don't know what's going on. Yellow, proceed with caution, I'm kind of just okay about it, versus green, good to go, oh yeah, got this in the bag. So you can have your child write or draw right in those circles or beside them what they are feeling comfortable and not comfortable with from either that lesson or that day. And that will then guide you. This is not a judgment about how good they are at learning. This is for you to see, okay, how well did they connect to your teaching approach today? And what do you maybe need to bring up again in a different way? So this way you can see then how you want to move forward next. You now have 3 new tools in your toolbox so that you can just bust those out whenever you need to and keep your approach really natural and easygoing. The second tip to get you started teaching intuitively today is to trust yourself as the one who knows them best. Your child literally shares parts of their DNA with you. You are connected to them in a way that nobody else is. You really do understand them best on these different levels. What if you're like, okay, that's great, but what does it mean to really trust myself? Well, let's maybe look at the opposite. What does it mean to not trust yourself when it comes to homeschooling? Well, that could look like purchasing curriculum and then simply doing what it says when it says to do it, because you have no idea how to approach this. And so you just follow what that tells you to do. The problem here is that the curriculum is not designed for your child. Your child may need that pace at some points, but they may need it faster at other points or slower at other points. And they need you to help them know when to speed up or when to slow down. When you start second guessing whether they're learning enough, whether you're doing enough, it can get really overwhelming because we start to then push our children and try to make learning happen for them. But the thing is, we can't make them learn anything. Only they can connect to that content in their own mind. It is absolutely exhausting trying to make something happen that isn't our role and responsibility. Our role here is to guide them and to set up the environment for that learning to happen, that they get to do it for themselves. The thing is here, those families with a relaxed and easygoing homeschool, they know what it takes to teach intuitively. If you need some new tools in your homeschool toolbox, well, I have a few videos down below that you can check out and start to revamp your homeschool approach so that it's one that actually brings you deeper connection together, one that finally brings freedom from that overwhelm and resistance and fighting. You know what? Check out this video here next. It's all about critical thinking. It goes through 3 tips that you can use to teach your child how to think critically, no matter what curriculum you're using. All right, that's what I have for you today. Don't forget to subscribe, and I would love to see you for the next one.